Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weishuhn. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend Luke Clayton and his guest for the next hour.
This is Dustin Vaughn Warnke, producer of this fine show that's been airing for the past 20 years. Welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoor writer for the past 4 decades and writes for a whole host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly outdoors column that appears in over 50 Texas newspapers, and he's lived the outdoor lifestyle since childhood. Luke partners with such companies as Pyramid Air, the ultimate source for air guns and outdoor essentials, CVA muzzleloaders, and their fine line of CVA Cascade centerfire rifles, Smokin' Tex electric smokers, ATN thermal scopes and binoculars, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge in southeast Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation, Butcher Packer Supply, everything for the home butcher and sausage maker, the Dallas Safari Club at biggame.org, and the Saskatchewan Department of Tourism. Now, here's Luke to kick things off with his longtime friend, Larry Weishuhn.
Well, thank you guys for that nice opener, and Mr. Dustin Warnke, thank you for that new spot there where you kind of kick our show off every week. I really like it, and I think Mr. Larry Weishuhn gives a thumb up. Right, Larry?
Absolutely give it a thumb up. I'll tell you what, Luke, this is a very special time of the year. You and I both have been very much involved with the DSC chapter things. The East Texas thing was just fantastic last weekend, as was the Texas Gulf Coast chapter event as well, too. And we got a lot of good things coming up right now. And I want to talk a little bit of hunting and fishing. I am meeting up with Jim Zumbo, old dear friend Zumbo, and Rick Lambert. A lot of people probably know Rick through his daughter, Miranda, that kind of thing. But we've been friends for a long time, and we're headed down the Texas coast. I tell you what, we're probably going to shoot a few little rounds of horned ammo war down there. I'm not sure it's going to be anything where we have. I know it's going to be accurate, dependable. I don't. If it's deadly, it may just be at cans this time because I'm not doing a whole lot of other stuff. But I'll be down there carrying my Taurus handguns with me as well, too. And, of course, I always have stealth vision binoculars and those kind of things with us as well, too. But that's going to be a good, fun trip. And then I want to talk a little bit about hunting as well, too. This is a good time to get ready for hunting season. And, I got into barely shooting a crossbow a little bit here not too long ago. You've been involved in archery for a long time, and I understand you got one of them 10-point crossbows now as well, too.
I do, Larry, and I'm excited about this. I've hunted with crossbows. I remember our friend Brad Finson and you and I were way out there near San Angelo at a big ranch out there. This has been several years ago. I don't know how many, right. 5 years, 6 years, something like that.
At least,
and they wanted some native deer removed, and I had my compound bow, and I also had a crossbow down there, and that was the first time I'd actually, not really. I'd hunted with one for hogs earlier, but the first deer hunt I'd ever did. Remember taking a deer with that and then showed it to Brad Finson, and then Brad took off with that, and he shot the bow the crossbow that I had, and then he became affiliated with 10-point crossbows and connected, me, and I might kind of help you get connected with them to learn a little bit about them. And, I've got a 10-point coming through the mail, Larry. It's shipped. So I'm not totally new to them, but I do know the quality of those 10 points. And you and I, and Jeff Rice has got a crossbow. The three of us are going to do some crossbow hunting this fall, and I'm all fired up about it. I'm ready,
I am too. Of course, I'm going to be probably a little bit early on that one because I'm doing a black bear hunt on Choctaw Hunting Lodge that first week of October, and I'll be hunting with that 10-point crossbow of mine as well too. And hopefully by the time that we get together to spend a little time hunting whitetail deer in Oklahoma, maybe I'll have a little bit of bear meat that we can kind of share around the campfire as well too, and of course a story or two as well.
I bet you will have. And a hunt that is, you know how all of us hunters are this time of year. We're making plans right now.
Oh man, yes.
And I've in the very early stages of a hunt that I'm really excited about. JC McCullough, fishing guide up at the Texoma area, and a longtime friend of mine for the past close to 40 years, I think.
Oh my God! Yes.
JC's a awesome outdoorsman, but he does hunts up on the Red River above Texoma, and he uses an airboat. He fishes a lot with lake boats, but also he has airboats for the river.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the river's often pretty shallow, pretty skinny water, and not real deep, so you need that. But what he does is sets up scouts with cameras. He's got them going right now, and sets up stands up along within walking distance of the river. And he accesses these things by airboat, and not many people can get back in there, Larry. It would be a several mile walk back into those spots. It is government. I think it's state land. I'm not real sure, but it's government land. And the thing is, no one can actually guide. In other words, by guiding, he described that as, you know, getting in the blind, setting it. But he can do like he says, I can do the work, and you guys can just go hunt. So. That I'm excited. You and I and Jeff Rice and maybe another friend or two. We're gonna. I envision it, and this is still in the plans to set up a little camp down there somewhere. You know.
Absolutely. To setting up a tent camp back in there, I'm sure we can get all the right permits, and of course he will know what we can and can't do. But,
yeah.
I mean, that sounds like an absolutely fantastic plan. I don't think, as you mentioned this before to me, I don't think there's a whole lot of access to that property outside of getting in on the lake, and I don't think there are too many people, from what you told me, that have had the opportunity to do that. So I know some of the pictures you sent me that the hunters that have hunted that area have taken is just pretty darn phenomenal when you get right down to it.
Yeah, some real solid bucks. A
Yes, sir.
lot of those pictures were JC sent me from last year from guys he had out there. But yeah, it's a unique thing. It really is. And it's all in Oklahoma, and it's all along the Red River. We'll talk more about that later. I just think it's a very unique situation. But I've got a couple of these little Coleman Insta-tents. They're little small ones, but they set up in a matter of 5 minutes. And I thought, we could have a bigger tent or two and set those things up just to keep equipment and food and everything dry, or maybe one person sleep in each one. But yeah, set a camp up. Get up early, and JC says, I don't know why this is the case, but he says along that river, he said 8 o'clock, he said you'll see does earlier, and he's got it scouted. He knows. He's a very confident guy, JC is.
Yes, sir.
And he said, you will see bucks. And he said, now, whether you see that 160 or not, that's debatable. You might. But anyway, there's a lot of mature bucks. And he said at 8:30, that's when they move. Moon can be black. It doesn't matter. He said those bucks get up and start moving about from 8 to 9:30. So
perfect.
He's got them patterned from years, and I could see us. And by 10 o'clock, you'll hear that airboat humming down the river, and he'll be coming to get you. And then what he said, you want to have some fun. He said some of those holes up there, those deeper holes, are so full of catfish that you just put a bait in the water, and then I can see how this will turn out.
Now you're talking, by golly.
Yep.
What a way to I can hardly wait. We'll start setting up some dates and getting some more information out to other people as well too.
You bet. You bet.
Give them some opportunities in that area.
But this is a time of year when everybody is thinking and making plans, isn't it, Larry?
It is. Right now, we've talked about it in the past. This is a great time to make sure that everything's shooting like you want it to, or if you're going to get a new rifle, to get it sighted in and get familiar with it, or a handgun, or a muzzleloader, or a shotgun, or a crossbow, or arch, anything. Even I suspect even Jeff Rice will probably going to be doing any spear hunting this year. He'll be spending time out messing with his spear as well too. So it's a great time. One thing we do want to remind people of, we got the DSC Summer Expo coming up at the Gaylord Texan there in Grapevine, Texas, July 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th. And on the 25th, of course, we've got our DSC Foundation Gala. That's our DSC Foundation that I serve as an advisor on. That is the granting arm. And last year we granted over $1 million to extremely highly vetted projects dealing with conservation and education. And would love for people to come out. You can learn more about it by going to biggame.org or dscf.org. And, you're going to be there part of the time. I'm going to be there the entire time of that event, good Lord willing. And be a great time to tell some stories and learn, do like me, walk around those booths and dream about places I'd like to go to and look at new equipment and, get to know a whole lot of people and spend a little time, like I said, just visiting, nothing else.
That's true. And folks, you can visit with Mr. Whitetail here about places he's been, and there's not many places in the hunting world that he hasn't been. Larry, there is so many plans being made, and our Red River thing, it'll morph out and we'll have it perfected, but by the time we get there, by the time we get going this fall,
Absolutely. I tell you what, that's something I'm looking forward to. I both love hunting in Oklahoma, and we've done a bunch there on the Choctaw.
Oh, yeah.
But this just gives us a new area and a new opportunity. And who knows? I mean, there's some huge bucks along the edge of that Red River. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun just trying to see what we can come up with.
That's right. Make some good fodder for some articles and video. Larry, I'd like you to come back and in segment 2 after a little break, and let's talk about some new regulations that's being discussed concerning, Grayson County, Collin, Rockwall County, Dallas County, where bow only for whitetail deer has been in effect a while, and some of these high fence ranches that have high fenced and deer herds that are within, they're not free ranging, they're in a high fence. Let's talk about some proposals that are being discussed. So how about taking a little break and then coming back?
Sounds great. I can approach that from a biologist's perspective, but also a hunter's perspective.
That's why I want you to do it, Larry. We'll be right back. Well, friends, Mr. Larry Weishuhn is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Look, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCullough developed them. They're 34 millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is level because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well too, and a whole lot of other products. And folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
Folks, if you enjoy hunting, I want to hook you up with Ultramatic Feeders. You need to know about this company. The website is ultramaticfeeders.com. They are a one-shop stop for everything you need with hunting blinds. They have all kind of different brands of hunting blinds, game feeders, parts for feeders. Again, the website is ultramaticfeeders.com. And friends, I've been using Smoking Tex electric smokers for over 15 years, probably closer to 20 years. You can go online to smokingtex.com. They're not one of your throwaway electric smokers that you can find at some package stores. These things are made to last. I've got one that I've been using for, well, that length of time, probably 15 years. Check them out online, smokingtex.com. Well, friends, welcome back, and Mr. Whitetail, my buddy Larry Weishuhn, is still with us, and we're going to talk about some of these regulations. Larry, thanks for staying with us through the break, and I think it would be helpful and probably inform a bunch of people. Get your take on the idea of some of these high fence properties, not many of them either in these counties like Grayson, especially Grayson, Collin, Rockwall, and Dallas counties, where there's a lot of talk about using rifles or any legal means on these areas, these high fence spots that are actually, these people are hunting a confined deer herd, aren't they?
Look, they really are. And as you mentioned, those counties up there traditionally have produced some ungodly big, I shouldn't say it that way, some beautifully big deer because of the genetics, nutrition, and an opportunity to get age and a relatively low deer density when you get right down to it. There's some high fence places there, and it's a very, very small number. And the regulations, from what I can read, that are being proposed is that those regulations only be would affect those places under a high fence. And what happens with the high fence is you start really increasing the nutrition to try to really jack up the nutrition for those deer on a daily basis kind of thing. You end up with a very, very high reproductive rate. And with that very high reproductive rate, it's been traditionally bow hunting only. The big deer been taken. A lot of folks hunt with a bow up there. You can hunt with a rifle for like hogs and predators and all those other kind of things. But when it came to deer, it's only been bow only. And I think there's a kind of a misconception that if this were to pass, that people behind that high fence could use rifles that anybody else could, and that's not the case. The bow is a very effective way of hunting, but when it comes to removing numbers, as I mentioned, as you start increasing really the nutrition and you can find this deer herd, you increase the reproduction rates tremendously. And to maintain that population so that you don't just totally destroy the habitat, you've really got to take off a number of deer every year. And basically by that, I'm referring to taking off a number of does more so than bucks. I doubt that there'll be any increased number of bucks taken behind those high fences, even if they allow, the taking of them with rifles. But the bow, as I said, it's a fun way to hunt. Crossbows are fun to hunt, and all those kind of things. But when it comes to removing numbers that need to be removed so that this habitat is not totally destroyed, it really kind of comes down to having to use a firearm to try to keep that number down. And I think that's what these people behind the high fence are trying to get done as are the biologists involved, and to have an understanding that to be able to remove any number of deer as again, back to the numbers, you have to do it with a firearm almost. So I think there's a lot of misconception like, oh my God, my neighbor's going to get to use a firearm and I'm not. Well, if that neighbor happens to be behind a high fence, it can only be used there. It cannot be used on what we would call open ground.
That's true, Larry. And honestly, you've worked with many ranches, and you and I hunt a couple of them over in one particular in Kaufman County with our friends the Cottons. The Parks and Wildlife, and you correct me if I'm not right on this, but I think I am. The Parks and Wildlife biologists set a number. I've worked with you on the deer surveys there on the Cotton Ranch. They say, okay, here's the deer density, here's the habitat. You need to remove X number of does, and you need to remove X number of bucks. That's the way it works, and you're expected to do that. Am I right there? I mean, the Parks and Wildlife want you to, yeah.
Exactly. And it all comes down to maintaining the habitat because, as I've mentioned so very often in the past, it all comes down to the vegetation, the amount of vegetation that's there, the types of vegetation that are there, and we're looking at from a biological perspective, we're looking at this not only from a white-tailed deer, but we're looking at it from all wildlife, and that includes, as I like to say, butterflies as well too.
Yep.
And to maintain that habitat, you have to remove a number of animals each year, whether it's open ground, whether it's enclosed behind a high fence. But when you put that high fence up, then it becomes to me the duty of that landowner to, by whatever means that are legal to them, to maintain and improve that habitat. And with the number of deer that they have behind some of those high fence places, and again, it's a very small number compared to that total acreage, you just can't remove the number of deer that you need to each year by bows and crossbows. And that means even if you brought in a whole lot more people into those properties compared to what you normally would, to try to remove the number of deer that need to be taken off that year to maintain that habitat without totally destroying it for everything, not just for the deer, but for every species of wildlife that's out there.
So honestly, if you have, and there are limited numbers of these ranches, I think just a handful in all of these counties, high fenced ranches.
Yes, a very, very small number.
Yeah. So to play the devil's advocate, if it were not legal to only use bows, and I've hunted with a bow for a long time. I hunt with air guns. I hunt with centerfire. I understand bows, and you're right. There's no way that you're gonna, the numbers of deer that need to be taken off some of these ranches, you're probably not going to get it done with just a bow. But say, for instance, these guys did not meet the quota. Say they couldn't keep up with the number of deer they needed to remove. I'm not a biologist at all, but I can see how bad things could happen. Overpopulation, disease, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it. The bottom line is they need to be able to keep those deer numbers, those deer herds in check. So, yeah, from a biologist standpoint, like most folks listening to us, I don't see a problem with it, Larry,
Well, the thing about it is it's not going to affect 99.99999% of the hunters that are out there. And if anything, it may create a little bit of an opportunity for some people who, for whatever reason, on those high fences, maybe they'll have an opportunity now for somebody else to come in there and shoot an extra doe or so kind of thing as well too. So it may increase hunter opportunity, but again, it's only on the inside that high fence. If anybody were caught with a rifle hunting during the regular deer seasons or outside the deer season with a rifle, they're a poacher. They're not a hunter. They're a poacher, and they would have to pay the consequences. So again, it's only going to affect a very small number of people when you get right down to it. But those people who do have those high fences, they have the responsibility, if you will, to maintain that habitat. And unfortunately, a bow or crossbow, to take the number of does that they probably need to take off of it each year, they're not going to be able to do, even if they brought in 10, 15 times more the hunters that they normally would. The bow is just not a very effective way to take down any great number of animals.
No, a good case in point, Larry, and I won't call any names. I don't want to do that. But I've got a good friend, and for the past season, I hunted deer in Grayson County on his land. Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, so I was hunting for a mature buck, and I didn't. Well, yeah, the bigger the better, of course, but I would have shot, an older, what most people would call a cull buck. I would have taken. I wasn't within 30 yards of one. I saw a couple of big bucks, and I saw some what I would say shooters, but I didn't have an ethical shot, and I didn't shoot. So, I mean, had I been on a high fenced ranch up there with a rifle, I mean, it would have been a chip shot. So, I guess what that proves is that even an experienced hunter with a bow is not going to be as effective, and it's pretty, blank statement, but you're not going to be as effective as you would be with a rifle. So I think, thank you for bringing the point of a biologist up on that, Larry, and it kind of, I could, from a personal standpoint, I could care less on one of those isolated high fence ranches. I like the idea that they can keep their numbers in check with an air rifle, a crossbow, a 7 mag, whatever, as long as they're on that confined piece of high fence property. To me it makes sense.
It truly does. I mean, it is a responsibility of that landowner and the responsibility of anybody to, make sure that the habitat and those animals stay healthy. And with overpopulation, as you mentioned, you end up with all kinds of different problems. But primarily what happens is you destroy the habitat for all wildlife. And that to me is what this is about, is just to maintain the habitat and improve the habitat. And if they need to do it with a rifle, again, very limited to inside that high fence, the way these regulations will be written or are written. And it won't affect hardly anybody. It's not going to affect the quality of the animal, the quality of the hunt on all the outside property. So it's just an opportunity for that landowner, if they're allowed to take animals with a firearm, to make certain that habitat is maintained and improved for all wildlife. And again, not just for whitetail deer.
Well, Larry, thank you so much for your input on this. And I think it's time for you and Mr. Jim Zumbo and our buddy Rick Lambert to get packed up for the coast and go get you. You guys going to be fishing offshore? Do you know yet? Or
we're probably going to be fishing onshore somewhat. We're going to be down there for a week.
Yeah,
so
boy.
Our cabin is on the water. There's a pier that runs out, so we'll probably do some fishing at night for trout and and that kind of thing. But I'm knowing. We've got a host, Mike Snyder, who's been with us for years as well, too. Knowing Mike has got access to all kinds of boats. So I got a feeling we'll spend a day doing some offshore stuff as well, too. And maybe fishing for red snapper where it's illegal, whether it's in state water or federal water. And then also, maybe doing a little trolling for marlin and dolphin and a few other things.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You got to feel it's going to be a good fishing trip, but also we got to feel there are going to be lots of stories told.
Oh boy,
pretty good eats prepared.
You betcha. Mike Snyder, if I'm not mistaken, was he was a veteran fishing guide down there, Larry?
No, Mike has been Mike. That's a different Mike Snyder. Mike has just been a dear friend through Tom, his brother Tom, and they do a lot of things with an organization called Trinity Oaks, which takes
right.
children hunting and veterans and outdoor opportunities, but. Mike and Tom have become good friends over the years. Unfortunately, I think Tom's going to be in Africa while we're there, but Mike's going to be our host. And my God, he's always been such a great host with he and his wife.
Well, y'all have a
can't
ball.
Wait.
You bet. Yeah, there was a Mike Snyder guide years ago. I used to interview him a lot with the Dallas Morning News. Larry, thank you again. And next week we'll rejoin and regroup and talk some more hunting and fishing. What do you say?
As I've always said, I can hardly wait.
Well, folks, we're going to talk some fishing, but let's take a break right now. Friends, this is Luke. If you're looking to refinance a mortgage or maybe buy some rural land or whatever, I want to recommend to you a company that I've had some stellar dealings with. It's Green Lending. Now, you can go online to greenlending.com. I'm going to give you the name of a guy that helped me tremendously, Jack Hamill, and I'm going to give you Jack's number. Give Jack a call if you want to refinance or you want to buy some rural land or whatever. Jack's number there at Green Lending is 440-223-2086, or just go to greenlending.com and check it out. It's a great company. I had some wonderful dealings with them, and most of it was done online.
Big Sam left Seattle in the year of 92 with George Pratt, his partner, and brother Billy too. They crossed the
Friends, this segment is made possible by Platinum Cadillac and Chevrolet in Terrell, Texas. Stop by and visit with my buddy, Mr. Justin Rudd, and his team of experts, and let them put you in a new Chevy pickup or a Cadillac or whatever you might be in the market for. Also, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma. Check them out at ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. Also made possible by Pyramid Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed Mr. Weishuhn there. He's always a lot of fun and always shares some good information. I want you to meet somebody else that's got an interesting topic. Mr. Matt Burgess, a friend of mine. Matt guides all over the world. I think that's a true statement. But recently he was guiding up on the ice with the Inuit people for polar bear. And I bet you that's a topic that you haven't addressed a whole bunch. Let's talk to Matt Burgess, and let's talk about a polar bear hunt. Matt, thank you, buddy, for being with us.
Thanks. Good morning, Luke.
Yeah, good morning to you, bud. I can only imagine how exciting that would be to go up on the ice, and hunt those giant polar bear. I will say this, and I want to say this right up front. The money's generated for all that, for those hunts, for polar bear, I know they go back into, probably without the hunts, there might not even be any polar bear. And I think that's a true statement, Matt,
That is a true statement. If we didn't do what we did in collaboration with the Inuit communities that have been hunting those bears on record for over 4,000 years, that we would, just by those actions alone, we keep the population going. I mean, the population is, since they incorporated the Marine Mammal Act, I think it was 2007 or 2008. I can't remember. People ask me that all the time, and I need to go back and look. But when the United States put the polar bear in the Marine Mammal Act, which caused we can't bring them back into the United States, they said at that time that the population was going to dwindle, and all this has done is hurt the Inuit communities. I mean, we said to them, we know more than you do, even though you've hunted these for 4,000 years on record.
Right.
I think they've hunted them longer than that, but
yeah.
So the between the Marine Mammal Act and what we look at the numbers today, so back then it was around 20,000 bears that they had on record, and now we've got 28,000 bears on record. So we haven't changed any. In the same amount of tags are allotted that were allotted then, so you can, and they're filling those tags. And most countries allow the polar bear to be brought in. It's just we've got this issue with the United States that, I guess, out of ignorance and this global warming nonsense that they brought up, they've caused just a divide in conversation. So we look at all that and say that, hey, we've got 8,000 more bears than we did then. And now we got to look at what that's doing to the ring seal population.
Yeah.
So the ring seal, that's what these bears primarily live on. And so the poor ring seals are taking a beating on this right now. And so back to what you're saying is being out on the ice is probably one of the greatest and biggest privileges of my life. I'd say this is the top 2 hunts I've ever been on in my life.
And folks, Matt he's been there and done that, some places that it's hard to imagine. I've talked to Matt a lot, and he's told me some stories about, you've been a lot of places, Matt, all over the world. And we'll get into the to me, the adventure of the hunt and camping out with the Inuit people and all that would be as much fun as the hunt itself, I think. But, and I know you can write a book about what I do not know about a polar bear, and that's a fact. But now I could just picture, an opening in the ice. How do they hunt those seals? I mean, I guess they just. Do you have any idea how they actually? I could picture one kind of stalking around openings. They have to have some open water, don't they?
Well, surprisingly, I thought the same thing. Yeah, they do. So a lot of bears concentrate on the ice flow. So where it's broken up, they do hunt that. But these seals actually den up, and so they'll create these dens. And so even the Inuits, how they hunt them, same as the polar bears, they're just cruising along. You'll see like a little hump in the ice, and you'll know. And so the polar bears will actually pounce on it and break through it, and they'll actually get to the ring seals that way. So they burrow in from up underneath and create these little domes. And the Inuits do the same thing. They'll actually, as we're cruising along looking for polar bears, they'll see these little mounds, and they'll hurry up and run over, and they'll jump as high as they can and hit the ground as hard as they can, and they'll actually cave through into these dens, and they'll try to get the ring seals that way. Polar bears do the same thing. So if they're not on the ice floe, that's how they go after them.
Somewhat like beaver. They come in from underneath and a little dome. Yeah, I'll be.
Same idea.
Same deal. Okay, well, so you're gonna, I guess, snowmobiles are used to get. I would imagine you have to cover a good bit of ice to find them, right? The polar bear.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes. It's we went out 150 miles.
Whoa, yeah.
From the village, and we're on snowmobiles. We're cruising along the ice, going. I mean, it just feels like you're going to the end of the world. And
I bet.
It's 150 miles. So to give you an idea, in Alaska, I'll do around 150 miles a day on Spring Bear snowmobile,
Mm-hmm.
and we can cover a lot of ground quickly. There, you're doing 150 miles, and you imagine, like, when you think about ice, sometimes people think about like a lake that's frozen that just is somewhat smooth. This is not the case. This is the roughest ice you've ever seen in your life. The best way to describe it is it's like an explosion went off, and then it froze. Somehow it froze midair. It's just these massive ice, chunks of ice all over, that you have to navigate around, and we call them the minefields. And so you go into these minefields, and you're just weaving in and out of really rough conditions. But yeah, we use snowmobiles. We all pull a sled. So each sled has a purpose. It could have fuel, camping gear. We pull one sled that has all the sled dogs, because we do have to pursue them with a dog sled. So we carry the dogs with the sled on top, and then once we're in the actual hunting phase, we deploy the dog team out. But so we take off through the ice, and going as fast as you can through the rough conditions, and it takes a couple days to get to the hunting ground. So that's more towards ice flow. So that's where all the action starts.
Okay.
And the time of year we were going is kind of their that's when the boars and the sows are getting into rut. So you see more activity with the male and females getting together. There's a lot of fighting that's going on between the boars, which is pretty interesting. I mean, you see a lot of battle scars on these bears. I mean, we're talking about the toughest conditions on planet Earth. I cannot think of a tougher condition than being on the ice, negative whatever degrees, and how these animals have survived. And it's just an amazing feat. It's just, it makes us realize, Luke, how weak we are as humans whenever you go out there and you spend some time with Inuits that have lived this way their whole lives.
Oh man. And a mature boar polar bear, if he were standing on his hind legs, I've seen them in museums. That's as close as they are huge, aren't they?
They are. Yeah. They can get really big. They're a longer animal. So like compared to a brown bears, I think are wider. The polar bear's longer, and so they square up a little bit differently. But yeah, they're extremely long animals. But standing on their hind legs, pretty impressive to watch.
Oh, I bet. To see one in in his native habitat there. So are they? Do you when you're actually hunting them, do you usually just spot one, or you might see a male and female together, or are they? I couldn't imagine you just see a whole bunch of them, but maybe you do.
I think on that trip we saw four polar bears.
Okay.
And most so when you see one with a female, that's a pretty good sign, even from a long distance away, that that's a mature boar. He's probably won most of the battles. And you're going to want to get a look at him. That's kind of the idea. When we spotted the bear that we harvested, we were just glassing, and I mean, immediately saw him with a female, and you could just tell by his stride, this is a really big bear. And once we had him down, I was just looking at the battle scars this bear has been through, missing teeth from fighting. I mean, just like absolute warriors on the ice. I mean, some of the most just brutal animals in a fight that I can imagine being in. A polar bear, you know, it's one of the few animals on planet Earth that'll pursue humans for a food source.
You know, I wanted to talk about that. For my education as much as anything, they will. I've read that, and I know it's a fact. So they will track. I guess probably not like you guys were in somewhat of a convoy, I guess. You had a bunch of motors running and everything else on your snowmobiles, but I guess a lone person up there could be in trouble, right? I don't know.
I really believe that they're a respecter of no one. I don't think if you're in a group or not, they just look at you as like a ring seal.
Yeah.
And we had another group that had went up prior to us. I'm friends with, and I was talking to him about his hunt and that we had sent him on, and he made the comment that after they had a bear down, they had to get out of there quickly because there was a couple of polar bears coming in to check out what was going on, and they just look at you like a food source. And there was probably 4 or 5 people there, and they don't care. They have no fear. Really no fear of humans at any level, and it might be the lack of interaction with them. But according to the Inuits that we've gotten to know and become friends with, that they'll stay out of town for the most part unless certain times of year they're looking for food source. I could see them doing that, but when you're on the ice, that's their ground. They own that. Man. You treat it that way.
Yep. Well, Matt, I want you to stay with us. Folks, we need to take a quick break, but one segment with Matt is not enough on these polar bears. He's going to come back, and we're going to talk some more about his polar bear hunt. So take a quick break and hang with us. Folks, I want to tell you about one of my long-term partners, and that is Pyramid Air. The website is pyrmydair.com. They're a one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Big bores, little bores, PCP guns, springers, you name it. All different brands, some great airgun supplies, but also a whole lot more. Archery, ammo, optics, shooting and outdoor gear, action sports, all this stuff can be found right there and ordered through Pyramid Air. So remember, go online to pyrmydair.com.
The snowflakes fall as winter comes, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, I've been shooting and hunting with CVA muzzleloaders a long time. They are, in my opinion, the best muzzleloaders on the market. But did you know CVA also makes a very fine line of centerfire rifles, built to last and super accurate? Been hunting with those for several years. Check them both out, the muzzleloaders and the centerfires, online at cva.com. Folks, I want to introduce you to some good friends of mine at Dash for Cash Pawn Shop in Seagoville, Texas, located at 133 Hall Street. The phone number is 972-287-3121. Go by there and talk with Gary or Randy, the owner. They're great people. They've got some great prices. Again, that's the Dash for Cash Pawn Shop, Seagoville, Texas, 972-287-3121. Well, folks, we are back with Mr. Matt Burgess, and we're talking about polar bear hunting. I mean, this is something that fascinating to me, something I know next to nothing about other than what I've learned talking to Matt. But the camping setup up there, Matt, once you get, you're with Inuit people, thank goodness,
Right.
they know, they live there. So once you make the 150-mile run with a convoy, I guess, of snowmobiles, do you set up, I guess you set up a base camp?
Yeah, really, it's just camping along the way. So they'll set up a few ice huts. They're really high quality tents that you get up off the ground a little bit. They'll run generators with some heat. I mean, they're comfortable. I mean, you're still on the ice, but it's pretty comfortable. All in all, yeah, we're camping along the way. You're not going to make 100, like I was telling you earlier, in Alaska, we could do 150 miles a day pretty easy. Up there, you're camping along the way. There might be days you're only getting in 50 miles. Just depends on the conditions of the ice you're crossing and how slow it is to go. But yeah, we set up camp on the ice, cook up. We had a variety of different foods. We had the traditional stuff from the grocery store, but we also sampled caribou, ring seal, and then of course after we harvested our bear, we lived on polar bear on the way back. It was delicious.
Oh, I bet. Well, excuse me, backstrap of polar bear. I can.
Yep.
Big when you grill the steaks, and so polar bear pretty tasty, right?
Right. Yeah. I was trying to explain to them how I would cook it, and they just kind of looked at me, and they just scoop up some glacier ice and melt it, and a little bit of soup mix, salt and pepper, and it gets boiled. And I said, "You guys don't have barbecue grills?" And they said, "No."
You were wanting to put that over some coals, weren't you? Or some.
I was, yeah.
Sear
it up.
You were ready to sear some mammal flesh, like the old coneheads used to say. You remember that?
Exactly. Yes.
Well,
yes.
but anyway, I bet it was good though. More you or I would look at that more like a soup or something, probably. But I bet it was good.
It was delicious.
So you camped along the way. You had to because of that jagged ice. You couldn't just hammer down and go 150 miles. You had to work your way. Being an old surveyor, which I am, I spent a lot of years surveying. I guess they're using navigating. Are they following a route, or are they just kind of looking at the ice and going around the rough spots?
There's no navigation. They don't even. There's no way to communicate between groups. And at one point, I mean, I'm with one of the guys, and then we've got another guy, a couple guys together, and we kind of split up. And I start getting a little bit nervous. I'm like, I can't see those guys anymore. Yeah. And we got down to this one area, and I said, and he stops, and I said, what are we doing? He goes, well, we were supposed to meet here. And I thought, oh my, things start going through your head like, oh, great. Yeah. Now we're in survival mode. No, he just laughed, and we kept going. And then all of a sudden I look over, and off in the distance, I could see the whole sled caravan coming along. And I realized, kind of thinking about it, it's kind of like coming to Alaskan hunting with me. I pretty much know where we're going. I don't need to navigate really. And they don't either. They've been doing this again for 4,000 plus years. I mean, This is generational families. And so they just kind of stay in you're on the ice, but you're between mountains. So I started thinking about it. I go, why was I nervous about this? You couldn't really get lost. I mean, you would end up following the path back, or you would, you're in the valley. So I realized at that moment, there was a moment there, Luke, where I'm like, oh, we're going to have a problem here. But they were not concerned about it at all.
That's amazing. Yeah. Were there, you said mountains. I mean, could you see a distant mountain up there?
Oh, we were between mountains. Yeah. Oh. No, their mountains are there. I mean, they're not real tall, but they're definitely mountains along the water there. I mean, you're in a bay basically between Greenland and Canada. And and you've got these mountain ranges, and I think you could go back channels and get lost messing around, but in the main channel, it's I mean, looking at a map, once you realize it, being out there, it's overwhelming. It's a big world out there.
But it's amazing to me that that they can do that. You've heard of people. I've got a pretty good built-in GPS in a sense, of going back to where I came from, that type of deal in the woods. Pretty good. Yeah. I've been with people with better, but up there on that barren ice, I mean, I can see how I would get probably really, hey, wait a minute, how do we get out of here? But they know. And if there were any GPS to be used up there, I would certainly be trying to look at some coordinates somewhere. But that's amazing. A trip like that, it's something else. So what kind of rifle? I would assume you need a pretty good caliber to down a polar bear. You'd have to have, right?
Well, I got to tell you, Luke, that is the learning that the misrepresentation of what I thought. They'll use a very small caliber. All the Inuits, they shoot like 243s, 22 250s. And you're gonna kill it. You're gonna harvest a polar bear with this. Oh yeah. They drop easy. And I realized their hide is not the fur's thick, but the hide is not that thick. And I really don't know why that is, but they are not hard. You get a round in a polar bear, it's gonna drop.
Is that right?
I mean, surprisingly, they're not difficult as you would think. They're not I would not even put them in the same class as a brown bear.
I'll be.
They're and I don't know. I need to look into that of the why behind that. But they kind of laughed at me. I said, "Do you want a 375 H&H?"
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
No. 243 would knock them down.
Good. And all the writing that we hear about with a 243 or a Creedmoor, they're so light, too light for even 200-pound white-tailed deer, too light of caliber. You go up there and take the same rifle and kill a 100-pound polar bear. And you got to do some of kind of take the lead on the skinning. Now, folks, I want to tell you, Matt's sons have a company called Dispatch Knives. Now, I've got a question for you coming up here, Matt. But I've got one of those knives, and I've had a chance to do skin a couple of hogs with it, which it's got it's a skinning machine. Did you use a Dispatch knife to skin that bear? I know you did.
I did. I was really excited about it too. I asked the Inuits, I said, you mind if I kind of take lead on this? And I just came off of Alaska and so I was feeling pretty good with the knife and it was just neat. Did the 5 cuts and then went through and started skinning, and they kind of, we talked about how, and they took some tips off of me. I took some tips off of them. It was really a neat moment, but yeah, I got to use the Dispatch knives that my boys sell, and it just sailed right through it. I was really impressed with it. I was pleased. I was smiling while I was doing it. And I'm going to tell you, Luke, skinning a polar bear, it's a privilege. But when you take those gloves off, you know how when it's a little cool morning, you might rest your hand on that meat a little bit just to warm your hand up. You got one hand in that bear at all times, staying warm while you're skinning.
I bet. Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
About what would that bear have weighed? What do you think, roughly?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, they got to be somewhere around 1,000 pounds.
That's what I'm thinking. Bigger than an elk.
They're heavy.
Bigger than an elk.
Much bigger. Yeah, they're up there with they're definitely heavy animals. I'm going to say that 900 to 1,000 pounds would be my guess.
Yeah, big rascals. Whoa. Well, so the meals, once you got your camps, going up there, coming back, you ate boiled. Sound like you had boiled polar bear, but going up, you had just groceries, right? I mean, I assume.
No, they would still bust out ring seal and
Yeah, break a little seal out on. Well, tell me about. We've got time. A ring seal. What? I'm almost afraid to ask what they taste like, but are they pretty good? You know?
Well, it's the blubber, it's the fat. It's
Yeah, yeah.
not the meat. I mean, they do eat the meat, but mainly the between the whales and the ring seal, they're after the fat content.
Yeah.
And it's fine. I mean, it has its own flavor palette. It's not something I would want my diet, full on. I'd take a ribeye over that, but
Yep.
it was still really good.
Is it fat? In other words, it's fat, right?
It's fat. Yeah, it's blubber. Yep.
How do they cook it? Do they fry it or what?
No, boil.
Okay. I'm gonna carry. Oh, okay, I don't see me going up to hunt those, but I probably have maybe some spam or something along the way.
I could see you, Luke, pulling out a bottle of cooking oil and going, "Boys, let me show you how we do it down here."
Yeah, right, exactly. That's what probably would happen. Or can we take some canned pressure cooked wild venison or wild pork along and some stew that I make and pressure cook it? Matt,
Exactly.
Matt, it's been a pleasure having you talk about this, and I know a lot of our people listening, I would dare say it would be a small percentage that are not like me and know very little about the polar bear, but that was an experience, probably I'm sure it was a hunt you'll never forget. So to learn, let's plug those knives to get those dispatch knives, or to go hunting with you. You got it all over the world. How do they connect everybody with you, Matt?
Well, if you want to get to my son's knives, they're dispatchhunts.com.
Okay.
You can go online there. You can order the knives. They're on most social media. I think they're on all social medias. They're not hard to find. And then we've got a catalog that you can go through and pick out the type of knife that you want for the specific hunt. If you have any questions, you can always send a message and we can help guide you to get the right knife for the hunt that you want to do.
Okay, good deal. Well, Matt, I don't know what you've got. I guess this is the summer. You might be a little bit of you're making plans for your fall stuff, but I want to get you back, and anybody that's looking to hunting and fishing literally pretty much all over the globe, they can contact you, can't they? Through Dispatch Hunts. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dispatchhunts.com. Yep. We absolutely can help arrange any hunt or fishing or wing shooting adventure you want.
And folks, I met Matt. Tell you how I met him through Stealth Vision, the awesome optics that I use. Folks can go there too and learn about those long range. We use those long range shooting, 1,200 yards, with those Stealth Vision scopes. And I've got their binoculars and all that too. Check those out. Matt, thank you, buddy, for being with us.
Thank you, Luke.
Friends, I hope you've enjoyed our show. This is our 20th year to be doing Catfish Radio, and I enjoy doing it now probably more than I did when I first began. It's lots of fun every week. But I want to tell you about a destination, one of my favorite destinations, and it's the Choctaw Hunting Lodge. It's up in southeast Oklahoma, maybe an hour north of Paris. I don't think it's that far, but it's an awesome place. You can go online to ChoctawHuntingLodge.com and check it out. Beautiful lodge there, trophy deer hunting on thousands of acres of Choctaw tribal land up there. It's just, if you ever go up there, you will return. A lot of eastern turkey in that part of the country, and probably our closest destination for many Texans to have a real chance to kill an eastern turkey. So that's got that going on. Exotic hunting, hog hunting. If you're an outdoor person, you'd love a visit there at the Choctaw Hunting Lodge. Folks, we are out of time. Make sure and tune in next week and be safe in the outdoors.